Welcome to Propel 2021. My name is Ahmad Shahid. I'm Senior Implementation Consultant for Acumatica team here at the Answer Company. Today, we will look at a few tips and tricks in the Acumatica ERP. First, I'll show you a few tips and tricks in Workspace Management area. Second, we'll look at a few tips and tricks for transactional document management in Acumatica. Finally, I'll show you how you can define a recurring schedule to email yourself or any user a report from the ERP on a recurring basis. Let's go ahead and take a look at a demo presentation in the ERP. The first section of today's presentation will focus on workspace management and tips and tricks. A workspace in Acumatica is a collection of different screens and forms. For example, this is a sales order workspace. There are different transactional forms, different reports, different generic inquiries, different configuration screens that are all part of the sales order workspace. Similarly, there's a projects workspace, payables workspace, etc. So I want to show you a few tips and tricks within the sales order workspace, starting with the most basic ones, and then we'll look at some more cooler and advanced features as we go through this presentation. So let's go ahead and take a look. There's an ability to define summary view and extended view within every workspace. Currently, in this sales order workspace, I'm looking at the extended view. In other words, I'm looking at all the screens and forms and reports that are part of this workspace. I'm looking at all of them right now. As a user, I do have the ability to configure a summary view, and I can access that by clicking Show Less. When I click Show Less, you can see that some of the screens and forms just disappear from my view. The really good thing is that this functionality of selecting which forms show up in this view and which don't is user specific. So when you're adjusting the view for yourself, you're not making these changes globally for everyone in the system. So let's go ahead and take a look. How do we do that? If I go ahead and look at a smaller view, I am looking at all these different processing screens, but maybe I don't really need to look at them. And I also don't want to look at the configuration screen in my day-to-day operations. So let's go ahead and remove them from my summary view. To do that, go ahead and click the gear icon, which is Configure Quick Menu. And within my quick menu, I can uncheck Sales Order Preferences, and this will now be removed from the summary view or the quick menu view. And similarly, I can uncheck Create Print Tickets, Print Email and Orders, Credit Card Processing for Sales. I can uncheck all of these screens to have them removed from my quick view section. If you needed to add any screen, you just go ahead and select that. So we'll add boxes to our quick view and click Exit. So you can see we've updated the workspace quick menu for my specific users, and I can still access the ones that I've hidden by clicking Show More. Further, to optimize your user experience further, Acumatica offers what's called a favorites workspace. A favorites workspace is a collection of forms and inquiries and reports from different areas of the system, from different workspaces into one workspace. So if you're a user who typically only works with few certain screens, and instead of having to go into individual workspace and finding those screens, you can favorite some screens and they would be visible and they would show up under the favorites workspace. So it's just ease of navigation within the system. To add a field or add a screen to the workspace, let's go ahead and add purchase orders and purchase receipts. All you need to do is just select this golden asterisk or yellow star icon behind the screen. Similarly, you do the same for reports and inquiries or any form that you want to add to your favorites. And now I have my purchasing documents or forms visible in my workspace, in my favorites workspace. You can also remove any item by clicking or unchecking the star, and just like that, you can remove forms from the favorite workspace. Let's go ahead and go back to my sales order workspace. I will now show you how to add new menu tiles within a workspace. A menu tile is really just a big menu icon, a big menu tile within a workspace. Typically, these are the screens or reports that you run frequently, and it just helps the user to have them display as a tile right here. So to create a new menu tile, let me show you how you would enter shipment screen, for example, as a new menu tile. I would go ahead and click my configuration drop-down menu for the workspace configuration, and I'll click edit menu. Once I select my edit menu, I get a few options. I can add a new workspace. So this is just FYI, if you needed to create a brand new workspace for your business, maybe have some specific customized screens show up in that workspace, that's totally possible. You can also create new menu items, which are these forms and screens. Or in this particular case, we want to create a new tile by clicking Add Tile. So in the icon, these are the out-of-box options available, just different icons. I'm gonna go ahead and search for something that matches shipping. There you go. And give your menu tile a title. So I'm just gonna call it shipments. And in the forms drop-down, I will select which form from my workspace should be attached to my menu tile. So we want to do, in this particular case, we want to attach the shipments form to the menu tile. There's few options. Just make sure you select the correct shipment screen. Some of these are inquiries, but I want to create the shipment transactional screen as my tile. And I can go ahead and select that and click OK. As soon as I click OK, you notice that I now have a shipment tile in my workspace. And I can click this tile and quickly access my shipment and data entry screen and create a new shipment record. So that's a little bit about creating tiles for forms that you frequently use. It is still there. You can do the exact same functions of creating new menu tiles in any of Acumatica workspaces. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at how would you add a new category within this workspace. So these are out-of-box categories. A category is really just a section. For example, automated operations has only one form, and transactions has 5 different forms. So the category in this case is transactions or automated operations or processes, etc. Now you may want to organize this in a different fashion in a way that makes sense to you. So let's go ahead and add a new category and also add a new dashboard within that category. Again, I'm going to go back to my edit menu section, and this time up on the top right section, I get menu settings. These are the different categories that are available in the system. So I can use either any one of my existing categories. These are shared between the different workspaces, or I can add a new category, and I'm going to call it Propel 2021. Click OK. I have this new category now available. But I do need to do one more thing. Let me just exit out of here. There's nothing visible or nothing added or included in that category so far. So what I'm going to do is just a simple dashboard that already exists in the system. I am going to move that within my sales order workspace. So let's go ahead and first search for the dashboard that I want to move. Sales operations or sales manager, anything just for this presentation. I'm going to go with sales operations, and you can notice that currently it's not visible in any workspace. So I can go ahead and find my sales orders workspace. And within that sales orders workspace, I can select which area or category of the workspace do I want this dashboard to show up. So the new category that I just created is called Propel. That's where I want this dashboard to go in. Let's go ahead and save my sales operation dashboard settings. And now coming back here, I click my sales orders workspace. Let me go ahead and refresh this real quick. I'm going to just go back to home here. And you should be able to now see the new category along with the new dashboard within this category. So you can add, you can add a screen, a transactional screen, or an inquiry, or a configuration screen, anything that is on this workspace into this category or multiple categories that you might create. Again, this is specific to your user ID, so when you're making these category adjustments, you're not really affecting other users, which is great. So you can do these for yourself. And finally, the last thing I want to cover in the workspace management section of the tips and tricks presentation is a new icon that I think was added in 2021 R1 or 2020 R2, so it's fairly new functionality. Um, and it is just this new button that kind of becomes visible next to any form. So previously, if I wanted to add a new, let's say I wanted to add a new shipment, I would either go to my tile, which I just added, but it doesn't come out of box, or I would click into the shipment inquiry, and this brings up a shipment list where I just see all the historical data or current data in the system for my shipments. And then I click this plus icon, and this is how I would previously start a new shipment record in Acumatica. However, in the latest release, there's been this update where I can just click this plus icon on that same form. I can click the plus icon, or another good example might be customer. I want to create a new customer record. So rather than having to go through the customer list and then clicking the plus icon to enter a new customer record, you can just use that new icon. So let me go ahead and go back and access this new customer record by clicking the new button here. And I have a customer screen open, ready for data entry for a new record. All right, so this completes the tips and tricks section for the workspace management. Most of it was focused really on user experience and changing the workspace so that it becomes more efficient and more convenient for your usage. So the things that I covered, I'll just quickly summarize them again. I covered how to create a quick menu within Acumatica. I covered how to select the star to have screens show up in the favorites workspace. We also looked at how you would create a new menu tile within any workspace. We also looked at how to add a new category. And in this particular example or presentation, we looked at how to add an existing dashboard to a newly created category in the system. And then finally, we looked at this new feature which allows you to create a new customer record or a sales order or a shipment record by clicking this new icon. In the next part of the presentation, we will cover document management tips and tricks. Let's go ahead and take a look at a sales order document. And I'll show you some tips and tricks, some new features that can be used on any document in Acumatica. A transactional document is a sales order or a purchase order or accounts payable bill or an AR invoice. These are all examples of different transactional documents. And most of the items that I'm going to show today are applicable to all the transactional documents in the system. So let's go ahead and take a look at first tips and tricks. In Acumatica, the standard way to add a sales order usually would be to go ahead and select a customer from the customer dropdown and then select a SKU and then go ahead and finally save the sales order. So this is probably going to still apply to most cases. However, you may have some recurring sales orders that you receive from a customer. And in that case, rather than having to enter the customer from the sales order from scratch every single time, you can save sales order templates in the system. I have already created a template as an example for a quick order for computers. So I can just click the clipboard icon. This is the clipboard icon, and then select paste from quick order computers template. So as you can see, I was able to really quickly create a sales order. I can go ahead and save and generate a new sales order number just by using the template. You can also use what's called a copy feature. In this case, perhaps you have an order that you were working on and there's some errors or issues with it. So you want to cancel that out, but you want to copy that into a new sales order because most of the data remains the same between the two. So you can do that by clicking the copy action and click plus and start a new sales order and then paste from what you've copied previously. Another great feature to just save you some time wherever that's possible. Now, if I wanted to save an existing sales order as a template, I can also do that very easily. Let's go ahead and bring up this sales order as an example. It is completed and it's closed, but I get the same sales order perhaps from the customer on a recurring basis. So I want to go ahead and save this as a template. To do that, you can click the Save as Templates action, and this opens up the document templates configuration screen. So all I need to do is enter the description for this template, and that's it. Let's go ahead and save this. Now going back to my sales order screen, I'll go ahead and refresh this. My template should now be visible and available to enter a new sales order from. There you go. Okay, so we've looked at the templates functionality. Again, this is available in different transactional screens in the system, for example, purchase orders and invoices, where you can build out templates and reuse them to create new documents. The next tip and trick in the example here, in the session here, is to quickly show you how to attach a file by dragging and dropping it into a document and then search for a file in the system. So typically you would go Files and click the Browse button so you can browse your system and find the file from the appropriate folders in your system. However, you can also just simply drag and drop in Acumatica and it just works really smoothly. It's a great use case if you're running two monitors and you have your Windows File Explorer on one monitor and on the other monitor you're running the Acumatica ERP. You can simply drag and drop the file from one monitor into Acumatica and it'll quickly get attached. So there we have it, the Propel 2021 PO file, Excel file is now attached to this sales order. Not only that, I can also very easily search for this file just by searching for the file title. In this case, I'll just enter the word Propel and go to my Files tab. And there we have it. The file is readily available for me to search in the universal search. Here the system tells me that this file is attached to the sales order number 6151. So either I can go into the sales order and find this file, or I can just click here and find the file directly from my search bar. And there you go, it is attached to 6151. So the next three things that I'm going to cover in this session are actually new functionalities to Acumatica 2021 version. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. Acumatica is very keyboard friendly user interface. So for example, if I'm currently selected in my branch field, I can click the tab button on my keyboard to go to the next column in my grid. And I can do that for all of these columns. Now, in my example, I never really want to change the line description because this line description is defaulted from the inventory ID. It is a default description for the SKU that gets populated here by the system. And I rarely ever change this. So when I'm tabbing from one column to another, I don't want the system to tab into the line description. I want the system to skip the line description and from warehouse go directly into the quantity field because I may want to enter the quantity from my keyboard here. So how do we configure that? Let's go ahead and take a look at my column configurator, which is the small icon here on the left side. And the column configurator opens up. On the left side, these are the available columns. These are additional columns which are currently not selected for my view. So I can select a column and bring it in my view. And similarly, I can deselect a column by clicking on it and bringing it back into the available column section. So that's very easy to change uh, change this column structure for yourself as a user. Again, these changes do not apply to other users. These are only specific to your user ID. So you can you can freely customize the view to what makes sense to yourself. Now, for me, I do not need the line description in my tab function. So I'm going to go ahead and put a strike through on tab by selecting the line description field. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now I'm back in my grid, and let's test this by clicking the tab. I'm going into inventory ID column, then I click tab one more time. Now I am in my warehouse column. When I click tab next time, notice that the line description is totally skipped this time around, and I jump directly into my quantity column. Just quickly do this one more time. From inventory to warehouse, and I directly jump into my quantity column. So again, you can use this to your advantage and optimize your user experience in Acumatica without having to affect the experience for other users. Next, I will speak about an attribute field and how can you use attributes on any transactional documents to capture any information that is not available to be captured from the out-of-box fields. So all the fields that you're seeing on this sales order screen right now are out-of-box fields. We do have the ability to customize the screen and add any number of fields that you may need. But for some of those things, you might need help of your consultants or your developers on the project. And please feel free to reach out to us if you need to add a new field to any specific tab, for example, or to any specific area on the form. So that will require some help from your consultants, from your implementation partners. However, if you needed to just capture some field on the sales order, or for example on a purchase order, and you didn't really care where it shows up, there's a really simple way of doing that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that by clicking the customization icon um, and clicking into Manage User-Defined Fields. This will open up my user-defined fields editor for the sales order screen, and I'm going to go ahead and say Add User-Defined Fields. By adding user-defined fields, the system shows me different attributes that are configured in the system. So these user-defined fields are also called attributes. Uh, the attribute that I want to add on my sales order is called industry because I want to capture what industry the sales order is being delivered into. I also want to capture the box on my sales order so I can find an attribute ID boxes that I've already configured. We'll take a look at this configuration screen now before I show you how these attributes look like on the sales order screen. So let's go to a screen called attributes and open that in new tab so I can keep my sales order open in my previous tab. And I'm going to bring up the industry attribute. So the industry attribute is a control type of a combo, which is a dropdown. My possible values for the dropdown are configured here, and you can enter any new values to this dropdown. So this functionality for attributes with the control type combo, this has been available in the system from a while. What has been added new to 2021 R1 is the control type of a selector. This control type is new. And what this control type allows me to do is it creates a lookup into an existing database table. So in this particular attribute, I am looking up the IN item box table, which is essentially configured in the boxes screen. So these are the different boxes I've configured. And rather than having to create my own drop-down list, I just created a new user-defined attribute, the control type selector, and I assigned this attribute to look up into the boxes table in the database. Now, by configuring the attribute this way, going back to my sales order screen, I can use any database tables within my attribute list essentially. So as I've added two new attributes to my sales order screen, I have now a new tab called user defined fields. And in this user defined field, I can capture the information for those attributes. So for industry, these are the different drop-down values. Maybe it's airline, hotel, and travel. And for boxes, this is the boxes configuration screen that I showed you a second ago. The system is looking up that boxes screen right here, and I can go ahead and maybe say I need a large box assigned to the sales order. So that's it. That's another new feature added, the ability to create selector type attributes in Acumatica, which are a lookup into an existing database table in Acumatica. Now, finally, the last feature I want to cover up in this document tips and tricks section is called side panels. Now, Acumatica has side panels from about 2018 release. So a side panel was previously only available for generic inquiries. This is an example of a generic inquiry, and I have a side panel available called sales orders. So a real quick introduction to side panels. What side panels allow me to do is I can essentially have two monitors within this same screen, and the data on my right is relative to the data on my inquiry. For example, I am currently selecting row for the sales order 6149, and the sales order that's opened up in my side panel is 6149 as well. If I were to go ahead and select 6136, the sales order on the right side also changes to 6136. Not only that, but if I go back to one of these open orders, I can also edit anything about this sales order as well as add a new item if I have to, just from this view, and save this. So I have now updated my sales order number 6151 by staying within the generic inquiry and without having to leave the screen. So this feature of side panels was available from 2018. In the 2021 R1 release, Acumatica has added the ability to configure side panels for documents as well. So for the sales order document screen, I have added two new side panels as an example. I've added a side panel for invoices. So as I'm entering the sales order, I can see all the past invoices for this specific customer. So notice that the customer in this case is New York International Beauty School. And all of this data, all of these invoices are only for that customer. As I change my customer by changing my sales order, now my customer is USA Bartending School, and you'll notice that my data now has changed and I am only seeing invoices for USA Bartending School. Similarly, I have added another side panel on my sales order document, which is my sales order history. So by clicking this icon, I can open up all of the previous sales orders that are in the system for USA Bartending School customer. And the same concept applies. I can, as soon as I change my customer ID, my data set on the right side also changes within my side panel. So this covers all the different tips and tricks features that I wanted to share with regards to document management. To quickly summarize, we went over how to create sales order templates. We went over how to attach a file to your sales order and search for that file. We discovered three new functionalities added to 2021 R1. The first one was how to configure tab for your user ID and skip a certain column in your tab feature. The second new functionality from 2021 R1 was related to adding a new attribute with a type of selector. And finally, we looked at side panels and how we can use side panels within the transactional documents. And the last tip and trick for today's session is the ability to automate emailing of system reports to your personal email account or anyone's email account in the organization. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we would accomplish that. I'm going to go to my inventory workspace and bring up a report called inventory balance. So maybe every day at 4 p.m., I want the inventory balance report to be automatically emailed to myself or to my warehouse manager as an example. And for that, I'll bring up my report and I'll go to the print and email settings of the report. In the print and email settings of the report, you can define who this needs to be emailed to. You can define the subject of this email, inventory balance report. You can add carbon copy or blind carbon copies, and you can select what format you want to send this report out in, PDF or Excel. Once you have that, you would go ahead and click Save Template, and you would save a template for, let's say, email inventory balance report. Now, I have a template for this report, and the final step that's left for me to configure is to go ahead and define a schedule for this template. So I'll click Schedule Template button, and I'll say, OK. This will bring up the Automation Schedules window. And in this window, I can give a description to my schedule, email inventory balance report. And I don't want this schedule to expire ever. I want this to be going on forever until unless I come in this screen and deactivate it. And I want to send this out at 4 p.m. every day, starting today, and it's going to be daily. So go ahead and save this, and that's it. Just like that, we have configured an automation schedule, and my inventory balance report will now be emailed from this template um, to myself, in this case, every day at 4 p.m. I want to quickly show you how you would email a report manually without a schedule. And that's, again, very simple. You would just go ahead and click Run Report. Once you have the report up in your screen, just click the Send button here. We can pre-program different templates in the email body of the report. In this case, I just don't have anything pre-programmed. If that's a need, if that's a requirement, we can help you with that as well. This is again my subject, inventory balance report. Notice that the system has already created a file attachment, and that file attachment is the report itself. So that's all. You can click send, and off it goes into my email box. Thank you for joining us for the demo presentation. If you have any questions, please email them to us, or you can speak to your account manager. You can also visit us at our e-booth. Once again, I would like to thank you for taking the time, and I hope you found this session to be valuable.